All right, here we go. What's going on, y'all? James SP. Yo, I wanted to talk to y'all real quick during my Coffee with SP segment about Obama. That's right. Yep. President Obama. Y'all know he came out recently on a podcast talking that mess. All right. I'm not even here to talk about his preference. I mean, although we all know what that is. That's for y'all to debate. I'm not here about that. But, yo, the thing is this. I wanted to point out that was nothing more than a distraction. That's it. That was a distraction. Why? What were we being distracted from? Tulsi Gabbard had just released some declassified information. What this information tells is what Obama and his team did back at the 2016 election. Remember when Trump was running and we started hearing noise about Russian interfering with the election? Remember that? And then when people began to talk out about it, they went full force on this Russian disinformation and all that other stuff. Do y'all remember that back then? Well, if y'all don't, I do, because y'all called us crazy when we were telling y'all this was a lie. Y'all didn't want to hear us. This is what happened, though. This is what happened. So the intelligent community, right? You know, when you hear things like this, someone's interfering with your election, the intelligent community kicks in for sure, because they would be the first ones to know. So what they did was they began to do their investigation, and they found out that Russia had no capabilities of doing what they were being accused for. So the intelligent folks came up with this report and was going to release it to the public. Obama wilded out. Obama gets the information and he says, hold up. Rather than put it out there, he had his own agenda. He wanted this girl, Hillary, to win. Now, I know this sounds all wild and all that, right? It sounds like some stuff that you would hear in the movies, but that's what took place. Obama kept the documentation, right? All the documents, he was like, nah, we're not going to release that. Instead, he gets with the folks in the intelligent community and tells them to come up with a report explaining how Russia did it, when they told him they didn't do it. Y'all see what's going on? So they all kick into gear and they put together, we'll just say, falsified intelligence information. Then later on, we heard about the Steele dossier. Y'all remember that? I know y'all remembered it. They played it on every radio. New York Times printed it. It was everywhere. And that Steele dossier was paid for by who? Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton paid for that dossier. And then they went full force with it. What did they do? They gave it to the media departments, the media outlets. I said departments, the media outlets, the newspapers, the magazines, the radio shows, all the DJs. It was everywhere. And we kept saying, yo, this is not real. This is not real. They went to Obama. These were the folks within the intelligence community that was not compromised, that were not corrupt, and said, yo, you can't do this. This information is so off and far from the truth. But he had an agenda. And we all fell victim to that. They went full force and opened a campaign on us that we all fell for. That's right. We all fell for it. But at some point, some of us began to actually do some homework and look into it. And when we began to talk to y'all and tell y'all, yo, this is not right. Something's wrong here. Even us media folks, the editors, the video editors, I know plenty of video editors who saw what was going on. This is being cut up wrong. that we're being lied to here. So I've got the footage, though. I've got some footage here where they're talking about the investigations that are taking place right now. All of this stuff was being released the same time Obama gets on this podcast talking this mess. So you don't have to believe me. I'm going to play the clip, but you don't have to believe me because time is the equalizer. That's right. Don't believe it. We've got some Trump haters that they're bent on this man being wrong about everything. And I get it. Listen, I totally get it. We have been programmed to believe the person with the shirt and tie or the dress that sits in front of the camera on an expensive set. You know, I get it. But those days are over with. We all have cell phones. We all have the ability to report whatever we're seeing.
All right, here to give us all the details and bring us up to speed with reaction, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. She declassified this report yesterday, has many more details. You know, I have this creation of the Russia hoax that you put out on X, that you posted on X, and I'll put it up as you're speaking here. What is amazing to me as I've gone through this cache of documents you've released is they concluded just the opposite. They concluded there was no problem. And then all of it, that was the rank and file. These were career people in the intel community. They gave honest assessments. Then all of a sudden it ends up in the hands of the leadership, the deep state as we call them, and what happened to it. Can you explain what the process and what these documents reveal?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sean. This is such an important issue, and I just want to start by saying that this is an issue that is important to every single one of us as Americans. This is not a partisan issue. It has to do with the integrity and the strength of our democratic republic. And it lays out this over 100 documents that you're referencing that I released, declassified and released, spells out in great detail exactly what happens when you have some of the most powerful people in our country directly leading at the helm, President Obama and his senior-most national security cabinet, James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, and Susan Rice, and others, essentially making a very intentional decision to create this manufactured, politicized piece of intelligence with the objective of subverting the will of the American people who in November of 2016 delivered a historic victory to President Trump, defeating Hillary Clinton. And President Obama and his team, their goal was to essentially not accept the decision of the American people and to use this manufactured, politicized intelligence as a means to enact what would become essentially a years-long coup against President Trump. You have gone into great detail over these years of what the effects of this document and this decision have resulted in. Obviously, a years-long Mueller investigation that cost taxpayers almost $40 million, 2 congressional impeachments, endless smears and attacks against not only President Trump, but his family. He had senior members of his team who were investigated, some arrested and jailed. We had heightened and increased tensions between the United States and Russia. The list goes on and on about the consequences of President Obama and his senior cabinet members politicizing intelligence once again, and I say these words very clearly, to enact what was essentially a years-long coup, subverting the will of the American people in that election in November. Now, you referenced this President's Daily Brief document that was drafted for President Obama in early December that reaffirmed what the intelligence community professionals, as you say, had been assessing for the previous 6 months leading up to the election, which was that Russia neither had the intent nor capability to essentially hack the outcome of the U.S. election. As you said, President Obama's political appointees pulled that document before it could be published, and it has not been published until we released it today. And the very next day after they pulled that document, President Obama called a National Security Council cabinet meeting to discuss how Russia interfered with the election. Again, this is the first
This
week
is
of December.
December 9th,
President
right?
Trump had already won. Correct.
This is the December 9th meeting.
That's exactly right. The December 9th meeting, we declassified and released what they call the summary of conclusions from that meeting. Then DNI James Clapper took the lead on what President Obama wanted done, and which was essentially create a document that tells us not if, but how Russia interfered with the election. President Obama delivered the conclusion that he wanted the intelligence community to reach and directed them to find and essentially create and manufacture the intelligence to support the conclusion that President Obama wanted to deliver to the American people. Once that document was drafted, the deep state kicked into gear and did what they usually do. They started leaking this classified information out to their friends at the Washington Post and others who are working hand in glove with the deep state to lay the groundwork for the assessment that they eventually released that served as the basis, once again, for this years-long coup with the goal of trying to subvert the American people's will and usurp President Trump from being able to deliver on the mandate that the American people gave to him when they chose to elect him as president of the United States.
So you had career intel people that came to a conclusion that, in fact, Russia did not interfere, that it had no impact, and they didn't like the assessment, and they have this meeting with President Obama at the time, and they make the decision, a very conscious decision, to pervert real intelligence, turn it into phony intelligence, but also simultaneously something else was happening. And James Comey, for example, was warned about the Russian disinformation dossier that was paid for by Hillary Clinton. He was warned not to trust it, but it became the bulk of information for not one but four separate FISA warrants, ruined Carter Page's life, but also backdoored an ability for them to spy on President Trump, candidate Trump, and transition team Trump. Nobody was ever held accountable for that either. Now, to me, it sounds like you have appointed, powerful bureaucrats that just flat out created a narrative that was false to undermine a duly elected president. Now, if that's not a grand conspiracy, I don't know what would be. Do you see crimes here?
I do, Sean, and I'm referring all of these documents that we have found and uncovered, referring them to the Department of Justice for further investigation, accountability, and action, not just investigation, but action. Accountability has to take place. The American people's ability to have faith and trust in the integrity of our democratic republic is literally what's at stake, and therefore the future of our ability to exist as the country that we know it. This accountability is critical to make sure that this never happens again. Exposing the truth and naming those who are responsible should drive that accountability that has to take place. I just want to mention quickly, Sean, you mentioned the Steele dossier. That plays a critical role in these documents that we released, specifically because James Clapper, James Comey, John Brennan, they all knew that the Steele dossier was discredited at this point. It's not something any intelligence professional looked to as something that could be referenced or should be referenced in any intelligence assessment whatsoever. I know that there were professionals who were told include the Steele dossier in this January Obama-directed manufactured piece of intelligence, and they protested to people like John Brennan and James Clapper. They were shocked that it would even be considered. The Steele dossier was used in this manufactured assessment that President Obama directed be created, along with many other pieces of intelligence that the intelligence community itself, for months leading up to the election, said this is not credible and should not be used at all.
But nevertheless, y'all peep game. And I'll just say this. If you're never wrong, don't even bother. But if you're willing to say, you know what, let me take a look at this, then your eyes can be open. You know, when I got into media, I thought that I was dealing with, like, working with a bunch of honest folks that were just being paid to tell the truth. I had no idea it was actually a thing. We're going to go and produce a bunch of lies just to trick the American people. That's some serious shit. The same marketing tactics they use on us to buy the products that they want us to buy, same tactics are used on us to believe in what a lot of y'all believe concerning Trump in this country. Yeah, it's coming, y'all. Your boy Obama was not what he said he was. Not at all. Deceiver, to say the least. Y'all take care. James SP, the content creator. Thank y'all for having coffee with me. But I had to just drop this and keep it 100. You know what I mean? So you don't have to like Trump. That ain't what this is about. But this is about what Obama did and how we all have been lied to and tricked. And here we are in 2025. And many of y'all are still believing a lie fabricated, a story fabricated by your boy, Obama.